Hello and welcome. So if you watched my previous video, you know that I am kind of running through the Islamic Creed Series books. There is 8 in the set, and this is the first one, Belief in Allah in the light of the Qur'an and Sunnah. I'm up to chapter 2 in this book out of 4 chapters, and I thought I'd do a bit of a rundown on those first couple of chapters just to kind of help me re-solidify that learning or that information. But I've written down some notes as well so that I can kind of recall. But the introduction basically begins with Aqidah. And Aqidah is the things that we affirm or believe as the absolute truth with no room for doubt. So it establishes in us that Aqidah is the most important thing in having belief in Allah. We need to have that belief. We need to perfect our Aqidah in order to have the best understanding and belief in Allah. It makes a comparison between Aqidah, religion and philosophy, arguing that philosophy is a human endeavor, aiming to help us discover the origins and the purpose of the universe, but that this is subject to the limitations of a human, because it's in our inherent human nature to have limitations. Whereas religion and Islam transcends this and gives us all of those life's kind of answers. It kind of distinguishes between Aqidah as having a great power over the soul of a believer or a soul of its followers in believing the truth, whereas philosophy doesn't have this kind of influence over our souls. So Aqidah is something really quite deep in you. Having Iman and having Aqidah is about having knowledge that reverberates deep in our conscience, so that our heart doesn't feel any hesitation concerning it. And that's the depth of belief that we need to have in Allah, that there is no room for doubt in us when it comes to our belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the book, he talks about the difference between religion and philosophy. So he makes comparisons between philosophy and how it's kind of deviated from monotheism or Islam, and how the deviations happens. He says the difference between religion and philosophy is that the aim of philosophy is knowledge, whereas the aim of religion is iman or faith. And that was really deep for me, because philosophy does aim to give us knowledge, but that knowledge is based on humans who are limited in their capacity to have knowledge. We don't have infinite knowledge. Whereas having iman, having faith in something and in perfecting our aqidah, means that at our core, at our soul, we believe, and we have that knowledge that's beyond just our human limits. I found a little bit of a quote that kind of, for me, summed up the chapter. And it says, the first principle of aqidah is belief in Allah. This is the most important principle of belief and action, and it is the focal point of Islam and the essence of the Qur'an. It says that we would not be exaggerating if we said that the whole Qur'an speaks about this belief, because the Qur'an either speaks directly about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His essence, names, attributes and actions, as in Ayat al-Kursi and Surah al-Ikhlas. So the entire Qur'an itself speaks about belief in Allah, and it says that this is why we find Allah mentioned in the Qur'an by His names and attributes 10,062 times on average in the Qur'an, on every page in the Qur'an, which is on average about 20 times per page. So the core of the Qur'an is having belief in Allah. Then it goes on to the first chapter. So that was the introduction. So it was quite kind of heavy in the introduction. But the first chapter then talks about evidence of the existence of the Creator, and it starts with the first proof, which is fitra, which is the natural disposition of humans towards monotheism, towards believing in one God. So as Muslims, we understand we're born in a state of submission to God, as all animals, plants and life forms are born. So you're born submitting to one God, which is where the word Muslim comes from. The word Muslim means to submit. So as Muslims, we are born in that state, or every human is born in that natural state of submission to God. We then change and deviate as we grow older, as we change religions and whatnot. So we believe that those that have taken the shahada later in life, This is why we say that they've reverted rather than converted to Islam, because you are reverting back to your natural disposition, which you were born with, which is your natural fitrah, and that belief that the universe must have a creator. So it talks about the universe and the fact that, we can't believe that this absolute enormous beauty and majesty of this world was just created by accident. It talks in that first chapter about different theories. It talks about Darwin's theory of evolution, and it kind of debunks that. It talks about the idea that nature is the creator and that all things are abiding by the laws of nature. But then again, like, who created nature? And it discusses how these differ from Islam and our belief that Allah is the creator of all things. I think one of the quotes that I liked from this, or kind of that summed it up for me, was this one. So the idea that life happened as a result of an accident is like saying that you could get a dictionary as a result of an accidental explosion in a printing press. And another little bit where it says, how could man have been created and formed by accident when his food is created in such a well-planned manner that requires the cooperation of the heavens and the earth? And that was kind of the beginning of the set out for the next chapter, which goes into a lot more depth. There's much more detailed evidence to define our understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It talks about the wonders of Allah's creation. It specifically mentions the intricate nature of many different animals. So it talks about bees and their world, and how the order in the world of the bees, and ants and pigeons and wolves and sheep. It talks about the cells in our body and how they are formed to perfection, our senses, how they're formed, our commonality with humans, with other animals, in terms of how we all breathe. The second half of that chapter, the second chapter, also talks about Allah's names and attributes, and our obligation around believing in His names and attributes, how to correctly understand them, and how to not make the mistake of likening any of His names or attributes to the creation. So in the book it says, the essence of the Creator differs from the essence of His created being. So, for instance, although Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes Himself as being all hearing and all seeing, and we know in the Qur'an that He describes Himself, as having hands, having a shin, rising above His throne, these kind of things, they are in no way the same and cannot be likened to the hearing and sight of us as created beings. It's much more than we can comprehend. And I think that was the main focus of the end of that chapter, was making sure to not associate the Creator with the creation. And that's where I'm up to so far. So that's chapter 2. There was a lot of excerpts from Hadith, there was a lot of excerpts from the Qur'an, everything. It was quite easy to read. There was some beautiful little du'as and things like that. So I'm looking forward to the next chapter. If you'd like to follow along. So the next one that I'm going to be doing, which you cannot see right now, is the oneness of Allah. So it's Tawheed, which is chapter 3, and then I'll go on to chapter 4. If you wanted to see or listen in or be part of my little journey going through this series, I'm more than happy for it. I'm hoping to get better in time. This is just my first. I'm troubleshooting. I'm not meant to give an in-depth rundown. I'm really just summarizing what I've read for my own self, to kind of solidify that information, to help me with my memory and my concentration, and to give me that sense of accomplishment that I've actually done something I've put my mind to. So I'm looking forward to reading the next 2 chapters, and I'll be back with another little video when I finish it.